Well, that was quick. Another episode of Double Fine's basic braining video series leading up to the release of Psychonauts 2 is out. This time, focusing on those psychic powers we're all so gosh darn excited about. So right off the bat, we're told that there are 5 psychic powers, making a triumphant return from the first game. Raz has mastered these abilities. They're second nature to him at this point. These powers are Levitation, Telekinesis, Psyblast, Pyrokinesis, and Clairvoyance. Levitation pretty much works exactly the same way it did in the first game. Raz can pull his thought bubble down, and he can stand on top of it. He can then roll around on it wherever he so pleases at an increased movement speed. Gliding using the thought bubble is also still present in the game. For example, Raz could hop on his levitation ball, he could roll it to the edge of a platform, bounce off the ground using the levitation ball, aka thought bubble. Then, whilst mid-air, he can pull his thought bubble out again and use it almost like a balloon to increase the distance he'd be able to cover after that initial jump or bounce. This gliding ability, utilizing the thought bubble, can also be employed to achieve a higher altitude, for example, Raz riding a gust of air or something like that to reach a higher platform. If you've played the first game, you know what to expect. Oh yeah, double jumping, of course, uses the levitation ball as well. Jump once, then you hit jump again, the levitation ball comes out, you bounce off the ball. Simple as that. Looks like we'll actually be using the levitation ball to cross dangerous terrain this time, unlike in the original Psychonauts, where the concept of being able to cross acid or electricity using levitation was introduced in Mia's mind, but never actually implemented past that in any meaningful way. Telekinesis may be the next power making a return, but it's changed in a big way this time around. Raz can now pick up whatever loose piece of detritus or object is around him, carry it with him wherever he goes, and then fling it at the enemy or an NPC that pisses you off, whatever you want. One of the guys in the video mentions that every enemy in the game has a specific ability they may be weaker to than the rest. In the case of telekinesis, senses seem to be quite susceptible to having random shit thrown at them. Go figure, who the hell wouldn't? Puzzles where telekinesis will be of use are mentioned as being a thing. Of course they are. Psyblast is pretty much the same, except not really. Raz fires a concentrated blast of psychic energy from his head, but this time, the rate of fire, at least to me, looks significantly increased. As one of the Double Fine staff members describes it, it's like a, quote, brain gun, end quote. I think I mentioned in a previous video that you no longer have to run around absorbing raw aggression for ammunition anymore. It relies on a cooldown for repeated shots this time. If I'm wrong, please, someone correct me, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Anyway, Pyrokinesis is still hot as ever. It obviously sets enemies, friends, houseplants, etc. on fire. In Psychonauts 2, however, they've added a visual indicator of where exactly the flames of hell will erupt from. It kind of looks like a big bubble that covers roughly the area of where the actual attack will land. So you'll be able to cause serious apocalyptic damage and hellfire more precisely than in the past. What can I say, Raz has just gotten that good. Clairvoyance allows Raz to see himself through the eyes of others, now featuring cool-looking green beam effects when used. Clairvoyance can be used on both friend and foe, and occasionally will let you discover a secret item location, and maybe even other cool crap we don't know about yet. The way they describe it in the basic braining video makes sense. They imply that if the person or animal or enemy you use clairvoyance on knows the location of an item, for example, that Raz has no idea exists, it'll show up when walking around while clairvoyance is active. And obviously you can pick that shit up. An example of an item you may find using this feature is psychic arrowheads seen through the eyes of a squirrel in this video. By the way, quick side note. I love the size comparison we get here with Sam and Oleander. He really is a small man, isn't he? Anyway, back to clairvoyance. It looks like the team over at Double Fine put some serious effort into revamping the power for the sequel. It just looks so much more interactive and animated compared to the first game, where all you'd really get from clairvoyance was a JPEG of Raz with no movement animation, and that was it really. So it's nice that not only have they completely overhauled the way Raz moves and behaves while using clairvoyance, they've actually implemented some gameplay into the power as well. Good job, guys. So we've talked about the returning powers and how they've changed. Let's move on to the new shit. Raz will apparently learn, quote, 3 major new powers in this game, end quote. The wording here immediately grabs my attention because of the word major. I'm just wildly flailing around in the deep dark void of speculation here, but I wonder if we'll learn a couple of new minor psychic powers, maybe? Back to the major new powers, the first being, of course, the power, the internet, and anybody who even has a fleeting interest in this game has been beaten to near death over the head with mental connection. I'll describe it here the way I've always described it. It's like a psychic grappling hook. There'll be these little floating nodes around the mental worlds representing concepts or ideas that Raz can latch onto in order to gain some additional verticality or to reach hard to get to areas. Maybe finding some sexy secret items or that one figment you want to rip every one of your pubes out individually over due to its frustrating placement. I'm looking at you, Waterloo World. While mental connection can be used as a means of moving around the world quickly, it also has a function in combat. You can pull smaller enemies towards you, or you can pull yourself towards bigger enemies. As you upgrade mental connection, additional combat options open up to you, like the addition of a melee attack when you yank an enemy towards yourself, or freezing an enemy in its tracks, or even sapping its health from its stupid body. New power number 2, new major power, I should say, is Time Bubble. It is obtained during the brain in a jar level. Jack Black crawls out of your TV, ring style, and personally explains its functions to you. At least that's what I hope happens. So Time Bubble slows down a specific object or being, completely localized to the target. So it doesn't slow down time as a whole. It only affects one specific thing in the environment, be it an enemy or a spinning fan or a platform moving too quickly for you to safely jump aboard. We learn the name of that psychedelic enemy Raz fights in the brain at a jaw level. These enemies are called panic attacks and are evidently fast sons of bitches, so Time Bubble, surprise surprise, is really useful for dealing with this shit. You gotta calm those assholes down. Another person in the video mentions that slowing down an enemy with Time Bubble and then pulling them towards you, or you towards them, with mental connection is a pretty sweet combat tactic. I'll make sure to note that down in my big fancy business diary, thank you very much. Major new power number 3 is the archetype we saw in Cassiopeia's mind. The actual name of the power is Mental Projection. It's basically a version of Raz from, quote, deep in his unconscious, end quote, that you can summon, literally drawing him into existence by the looks of things. Tim says that this archetype Raz summons is somehow a warrior spirit and is described as, quote, like your eager little brother, end quote. I can already tell there's going to be an entire section of the internet devoted to worshipping this little asshole when the game releases, and I am fine with that. This archetype can be used as a distraction in combat, with some of the best running away in terror animations I've ever seen. You can also slip through tiny or narrow areas in order to solve specific puzzles or reach levers, allowing Raz to gain access to something or some way he usually could not. There's a really nice bit here in the video where Tim mentions that, as we all know, the voice actor of Raz, Richard Horvitz, who voiced Invader Zim, is rejoined with fellow cast member Ricky Simmons, who did the voice of Gur the Robot. This makes me really happy. And I just get this big dumb smile on my face thinking about those two interacting again. This was an absolute genius casting decision. And that's it for Basic Braining Episode 2. There'll probably be a 3rd episode. I mean, nobody ever releases a hyping up video series with only 2 parts. At least 3 is what I'm expecting. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm very, very excited for this game. It's been, 16 years since the first game came out? That's incredible. I feel old as shit. Just hoping the wait's been worth it. With every bit of info that gets released, my heart rests a little easier knowing that it actually looks like it's probably going to be pretty good. Until the next video, I'm going to go install laser eyes in my lawn gnomes.